For everybody that you've known that's having heart problems, that's not good right there. And they're getting bigger and bigger. Trump's afterlife fear sparks fresh health concern as president admits, I'm not doing well.
You just heard from right-wing conspiracy theorist and dipshit Alex Jones, who is seemingly coming to grips with reality for once about Donald Trump's poor health. Now, nobody knows how bad it is in actuality, but it's clear that something isn't right, and you know it's bad if a Trump dick rider like Alex Jones isn't denying it. But I mean, he's 79 years old, he eats like shit, he looks like shit, he probably feels like shit, he doesn't exercise, he was recently diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency, he's clearly in cognitive decline even though he's a dipshit, but despite the dipshittery that he subjects us to on a daily basis, you can see that mentally he is sundowning, obviously. And as of late, his comments about heaven have people turning their heads, wondering if that's him reckoning with his own mortality. But Jones put out this unnecessarily long 32-minute video explaining why he worries about a major collapse in Donald Trump's health in the near future. Now, he cushions his commentary, of course, with copious amounts of dick-sucking and endless caveats and rationalizations for why this is really self-inflicted, and if Trump worked less, he'd be in better health. But the bottom line is that Alex Jones fears the worst, and his audience seems to agree based on what I've seen. Nonetheless, here's what he had to say.
I predict Trump is going to have some type of collapse within the next 12 months at the current trajectory. I'm not saying he's going to collapse. I'm saying if he doesn't take his foot off the gas pedal, I guarantee you, and I've got stamina, way better than most people. If I had Trump's job at 51 for a month, I would have a nervous breakdown. I've seen a lot of signs of Trump declining. Trump does sometimes, 2 a.m. TV and radio interviews. I know he sleeps less than 4 hours. He's 79. He's been through 9 years of hell. Look what 4 years does to other presidents. They age incredibly fast. And so he's on a lot of the time, but like a light bulb that's starting to go out, it gets brighter, it gets dim, it goes in and out. And so I'm going to be talking about that today. He's got extremely swollen ankles. When they said, oh, look, bloody hands, that was golf hand. You can see it. Yeah, and you see a little swelling there. If you pull up the ankles from Alaska, it's a straight-on shot. They are big. They are swollen. I mean, they are like really big. I mean, they look like my neck's 19 and a half inches, about like that. His ankles look like they're about 15 inches around. That's not a good sign for the heart and the rest of the body, because the rest of him, he's lost weight. He's not that fat. So Trump really needs to exercise and take care of himself. Yeah, that's not good.
Now, I don't see a lot of other right-wing commentators speaking out about this because they try to perpetuate this facade about Donald Trump being, some sort of pseudo-superhuman or a demigod of sorts, because that kind of plays into their narrative about Donald Trump being an alpha male, even though he's a makeup-wearing beta male cuck, actually. But the fact that more conservatives and journalists aren't talking about this leads me to believe that there's some sort of cover-up going on here. Perhaps journalists like Jake Tapper should spend some time investigating this. We all know that he'll regurgitate the same conclusion back to us that we all came to years ago and pass it off as groundbreaking journalism, but if Alex Jones, of all people, is starting to publicly question Trump's health, he's kind of a canary in a coal mine for how obvious it's becoming, which necessitates further scrutiny from actual journalists, since this is a story of great public interest, obviously. And as I alluded to earlier, the InfoWars audience does seem to be in agreement with Alex Jones here. Agreed, I think we can all live with the Don spending a bit more time playing golf, plus it will irritate the hell out of the Dems. I agree, it won't help us if he doesn't take care of himself. I pray for you, Donald Trump. Take care of you so you can take care of us, Donald Trump. I see it. I know you see it too. Slow the train a little bit, Donald Trump. Not everyone was happy about Jones's comments, by the way. This person accused him of betraying the president for daring to point out the obvious. Another was mad that Jones vocalized his concerns publicly. And these aren't viral replies by any means, so it's hard to gauge how most cultists feel, but this small sample indicates that they're not completely blind, at least in this limited respect with regard to his health. Will they still cook up some conspiracy theory when he inevitably croaks? Of course, but them coming to terms with his mortality is honestly a little bit surprising to me, because we were reaching levels of sycophancy where I was concerned that they were literally starting to believe that he was some sort of superhuman that would live forever. But it turns out reality penetrates even the thickest echo chambers sometimes, and the concerns about Donald Trump's health are only starting to grow, given his newfangled obsession with heaven as of late. And for those who missed it, I want to play this clip for you because it really is startling. He was talking to Fox News, and he inexplicably brought up heaven while talking about Russia and Ukraine.
I want to end it. We're not losing American lives. We're not losing American soldiers. We're losing Russian and Ukrainian, mostly soldiers, some people as missiles hit wrong spots or get lobbed into cities like Kiev and towns. But, if I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons. Well, I think I saved a lot of lives with India, Pakistan. They were going at it.
Oh, honey, I don't know how to break this to you, but heaven isn't real, and you should be very thankful for that, because if it was, you would have zero chance of getting in. In fact, you would be sent to the seventh circle of hell in Dante's Inferno with all of the most notorious war criminals and mass murderers. And let's just say that he actually does manage to facilitate an end to Russia's invasion in Ukraine and saves all those lives. That's all well and good. Great. Credit where it's due. But there's still a massive deficit that he has to make up. His cuts to USAID could cost 14 million people their lives by 2030 in countries like South Sudan. His cuts to Medicaid and the big bullshit bill could cost 50,000 Americans their lives every single year. He's also arming and funding Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza and greenlit Israel's total takeover of Gaza. More than 1,000 starving Palestinians have been murdered since May in a genocide that's taking hundreds of thousands of innocent lives, and he's supported Israel's massacre at every step of the way, both politically and monetarily. In his first term, he also vetoed legislation that would have ended U.S. complicity with Saudi Arabia's genocide in Yemen, where their blockade starved hundreds of thousands of civilians in Yemen. One of his first acts as president in his first term, by the way, led to the death of 8-year-old Nawar al-Awlaki. This is not an exhaustive list, but if God is real, he would have to answer for all of these deaths that he caused, either directly or indirectly. And we've only talked about deaths thus far, but he's done other things that harmed a lot of people even if they didn't die. Mass deportations have led to some deaths, but mostly it's led to unfathomable human rights abuses that has destroyed countless lives of people just trying to make it for themselves. He's been accused of sexual misconduct by more than 24 women and found liable for rape in civil court, and was friends with a notorious pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. Not to mention he lies all the time. If his mouth is open, odds are he's lying. He's also a lifelong con man. He scammed his own supporters. He's using the presidency to enrich himself personally. But put aside all of those things that I just said. Pretend like none of that happened. Just by this one fact alone, he would go to hell, because as the Bible says, specifically Mark 10:25, Jesus says it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Game, set, match. Just based on his wealth alone, he would go to hell. And if God exists, he would laugh in Trump's fucking face for even having the audacity to ask to be let into the pearly gates. It is a no, a hard no from God. But I think that, as we all can see, it's possible that Trump is talking more and more about heaven. That wasn't the only instance, because maybe he's dying. I mean, this is conjecture. I can only speculate, so keep that in mind. But it seems a little bit conspicuous that all of a sudden he's talking about this so much. But it's not happening, Donnie. You are not getting into heaven. And he signaled that his chances weren't great, which kind of tells us that he knows he's a bad person. But, I mean, he really should be thankful that God isn't real, because the divine retribution that he would face if there was a God would be inconceivable. It's people like Trump that makes me wish that God was real, so people like him could be held accountable for some way, because Lord knows our fucking system isn't going to do it. It just won't hold people like him accountable. But when the chief regime propagandist Carolyn Levitt was asked about whether or not he was talking about heaven earnestly, she said, yes, he is.
I know the president said on Fox News this morning that he's partially seeking peace in order to get to heaven. Was he joking, or is there spiritual motivation behind his peace deals here?
I think the president was serious. I think the president wants to get to heaven, as I hope we all do in this room as well.
Well, heaven isn't real, so write that down. But to her broader point, I do tend to agree. I think that Trump is being serious when he talks about heaven. And we all kind of noticed that he started to talk more and more about spirituality after his assassination attempt, which was a shift because in his first term, there were reports that he was making fun of Mike Pence for asking people to pray for them. So all of the Jesus speak in his first term was just his cynical pandering to evangelicals, but it does seem as if he has sincerely drank the Kool-Aid since his assassination attempt. And when he talks about heaven, I think he actually does want to get into heaven and thinks that there is a heaven, or hopes that there is a heaven. And in a radio interview with Todd Starnes, he brought up heaven again and talked about, how Christians, they want to be good people because they want to get into heaven.
If you look around, people of faith, there's a feeling they want to be good. They get punished if they're not good, right? If you don't think about that, if you're not a believer and you believe you go nowhere, what's the reason to be good, really? There has to be some kind of a report card up there someplace, let's go to heaven, let's get into heaven. It's sort of a beautiful thing.
What he said there is such a self-report because he's tacitly admitting that without the threat of eternal damnation or the promise of an eternal afterlife, he'd have no incentive to be a good person. In other words, he doesn't want to be a good person on his own volition. He's just trying to be a good person because he feels as if he has to. And if you actually think you're trying to be a good person, Don, I don't know what to tell you. You're more delusional than any of us thought because you are one of the worst people to ever fucking live. The amount of pain and suffering you have caused is unfathomable. But no, Don, knowing there's no afterlife, it gives you more incentive to be a better person and adds so much more value to this life because once you finally accept that this almost certainly is the only form of existence we'll ever experience, it actually adds so much more value to this life and encourages you to make the best of it. In our short time on this planet, I want to do everything I can to make sure that our existence is as dignified as it possibly can be. I want people to have healthcare and freedom and the ability to pursue their dreams. I don't want them to spend the overwhelming majority of their short existence slaving away for a corporation that only cares about profits. I want people to be happy. I want the people who are around me to experience happiness, and I want to facilitate that. I want them to fall in love and smile and laugh because all of this will be gone one day. And that finality is what makes our time on this planet so valuable and so beautiful. The fact that it's temporary makes it all the more precious. Contrast that with when I was a teenager who was raised evangelical, and I was miserable, quite frankly. I barely had any friends, had trouble making friends. I was homeschooled, socially awkward, depressed, and I didn't really care to improve myself because to me it didn't matter because one day everything would be peachy keen when I went to heaven. And I remember I had a thought when I was like 14 or 15 about how I couldn't wait to die so I could finally live the life that I thought I deserved and to be with Jesus. But after years of, questioning my faith and experiencing cognitive dissonance, once I finally accepted that there's almost certainly no God, it was like this cloud that was following me around all my life had lifted, and I got this newfound clarity that I never had before. I realized, oh my God, this really is it. There's no life after death, almost certainly. So I really have to make the best of the time that I have now and be the best person I can possibly be and try to make sure that the lives of everyone else are better. And, even though there's no divine reward for doing good deeds or divine punishment for doing bad deeds, I still want to do good in this life because of how precious it is, since we only have one, and it's short, and then it's over like that. I derive my sense of morality and empathy and value from this short, bizarre existence that we have. And obviously, you don't have to be religious to be a good person, as evidenced by the fact that hyper-religious Christo-fascists are currently making all of our lives a living hell. But simply not having a belief doesn't automatically mean that you're just going to be a bad person, like he said. And I think that says more about him than it says about people who are atheists or agnostic. But at the end of the day, it makes sense for Trump supporters to be concerned with his health because he absolutely does not look good. And I'm not saying that his death is imminent, although inshallah, but he's very clearly on the decline, which is why I think that he's talking about heaven more. And I think that's a reasonable thing to speculate about because he's coming to terms with his own mortality. So, as things get worse for him, I would imagine that he's probably going to talk about heaven even more. But I mean, the fact that even Alex Jones is willing to admit it, it speaks volumes to how serious the situation may be, because we all know that it's serious. But when somebody like Alex Jones says it, that's when it's like, oh, if this dipshit Trump sycophant is saying it, then goddamn, maybe it is bad.
Beautiful, beautiful. I will eat your ass. Beautiful, gay, beautiful.
Tremendous, 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 tremendous.